to talk a little bit about Black Widow. I'm still working on my Black Widow review. I have written a review, but I'm working on my video. It's a fine movie, whatever. I'll get to that later. I wanted to go to this IndieWire post by writer Eric Kahn, whose name is very similar to my own. It's making me a little uncomfortable. But in this otherwise pretty decent review, he writes, "Needless to say, the movie does a far better job than the rah-rah inclusivity gesture at the end of Endgame to play up its feminist leanings. Black Widow not only passes the Bechdel test, it forces men to squirm as it puts them in their place. One standout bit finds the women neutralizing their annoying adopted dad with period talk." Ay, ay, ay. Why does this... Okay, this was also what IndieWire tweeted, pretty much like a shortened version of that paragraph, talking about how the movie makes men squirm, or squeam, something like that, and puts them in their place, passes the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test is a measurement whether there are at least two women in a movie that have a dialogue with one another that doesn't include mentioning or referring to men. So something that, tons of movies these days pass the Bechdel test. It's pretty antiquated. So it's kind of an interesting thing to put in a movie about a female lead. Like, of course it passes the Bechdel test. I mean, it's primarily about Natasha Romanoff, played by Scarlett Johansson. This is a chick superhero movie. And it's just such an odd framing, right? It makes men squirm as it puts them in their place. And there's so many ways to look at that. Are they talking about the men in the movie? Because he does reference the David Harbour character, or the Red Guardian, who is the fake dad of Natasha and Yelena, and there is a lot. They have a lot of bad blood. So yes, there is period talk. I don't know that men are so horrified of period talk. I mean, it's just like anybody who has women, daughters, wives, sisters, mothers, whatever in their life. They have been around, periods and PMS and all the rest of that. Are they talking about the men in the movie, or are they just talking about men in general? Because I don't think this is the kind of movie that makes men uncomfortable. It's an action-packed fighting movie. It's an action movie. It's like a Mission Impossible or Jason Bourne, or one of those types of just action movies with lots of explosions and really, really intense fist fights. And that stuff's all fun. It's not as fun as those movies I'm talking about, because it doesn't have as good of a story, and it's not as well paced, and it's too long, and it's boring at times. But really, like, at no point did I think while watching this, oh man, those chicks are really putting men in their place. Whew. Good thing this is some girl power going on here. Like, what feminism? Yay. No, it doesn't have to do that. It's not trying so hard to be to lean into feminism, honestly. This is just an action movie. The fact that the main characters are girls has nothing to do with anything, really. That's awesome. We've all known that Black Widow's badass for a long time now. This movie, yes, there are some things, like the bad guy and the Red Room, and how these brainwashed women are working for this wicked man, but I don't think that it's in your face like rah-rah feminism either. I think it's weird to even frame it this way, because in an odd way, he brings up the Bechdel test. The whole framing of this as a feminist-leaning movie is the fact that women are putting men in their place. So again, this is just feminism based on women putting men in their place. So women still relying on men to be badass, right? Do you see how that works? It's sort of self-defeating in a lot of ways. So I think this is kind of terrible criticism, for one thing. I think criticism is better when it's not dragged down by ideology. And that's not to say that you can't bring your ideology, your belief system, your religious values, your atheism, whatever it is, into your critical work to inform your ideas. But once you start thinking or writing about those ideas through that lens exclusively, through ideological lenses exclusively, I think that really cheapens criticism. It cheapens art. So whether or not you're creating art or you're writing criticism about art, doing so with an explicitly ideological lens, I think, hurts the work. We need, criticism, like art, should take into account the human condition. It should look at, the contextual, historical, interpersonal stuff, all of the things that make characters interesting, that make stories compelling, that make this whole crazy world, a compelling study. So criticism, through the Marxist lens, or through the libertarian lens, or through the, whatever sort of ideological lens you take criticism through, I think that cheapens criticism, because instead of just informing your knowledge, you're actually actively making a political statement about art. And it's kind of like stories in art, video games, movies, whatever, can have political messages, but if the point of the art becomes the political message, then you enter the realm of propaganda, and the same thing it applies to criticism, in both directions. So if a movie comes out and it's explicitly political and it's just hammering home like Trump is bad or Clinton is bad or whatever, like that is generally speaking not going to be the most compelling movie, because first of all, it's stuck in a particular moment in time, and second of all, it's just arguing a political point rather than talking about deeper human stories. Human stories that transcend politics can still be political. So I think, if we're going to review Black Widow through a feminist or even an anti-feminist lens, we are going to have a shitty critique of that movie. The movie itself, I don't think really tries very hard to be a feminist movie. I think that this is kind of the Marvel thing. Critics, for whatever reason, really love most Marvel movies and give them probably inflated review scores overall, and attribute too many good qualities to them, including like this idea that it's this, great like feminist commentary. It's not. It's a movie about things exploding and people getting into fights, and it's fairly generic, and it doesn't really say anything about the female struggle in the world or whatever. And it certainly doesn't, I don't think at any point, put men specifically, explicitly in their place. I guess you could interpret that in a positive light or a negative light if you want to read too much into things, but I think that we're at a point in the internet era, where everyone's trying to do that, where everyone's trying to either find like, oh, this is horrible, it's so feminist, the feminazis have come, and they're, no, it's a stupid superhero movie. Or we have people like, on the other side saying, oh, this is such a great like feminist paean to woman power or whatever, and that's not true either. Again, it's just a pretty mediocre action movie. Big budget, lots of special effects, lots of things explode. There are some awesome chicks who fight like badasses. That's cool, whatever. Again, that's nothing new. There's lots of movies with badass action hero chicks. This goes back a long time, probably really kicked off with Alien and, Ripley. But there's been plenty of other badass action heroes that are women ever since, so this is not really anything new. It's not anything new in the MCU, which has had a number of other, including movies with Black Widow. So really, I don't see this as a feminist movie. I don't see it as a movie that makes men squirm or puts them in their place. I think that the fact that the villain is a man has no bearing whatsoever on the movie overall. It's honestly, the bad guy is just kind of boring and blasé. So, anyways, don't do criticism through a political lens, but use politics and your knowledge of politics and your beliefs to inform criticism, so that you can have a better understanding of what's going on in stories and with the context of the history, but not frame and box in all of your critiques into something into this narrow political ideological framework. That's my personal belief with criticism. I have my own, I definitely infuse my reviews with my own beliefs and my own biases, while at the same time trying to remain as objective as possible, so that, if a movie does, present views that I don't necessarily believe in, I don't let that completely change how I feel about the movie, because a movie can promote beliefs I don't agree with and still be very funny or very exciting or just very well made. I don't have to agree with everything it's trying to say in order to give it a positive review. And I certainly, if I agree with everything it says, that probably will influence me, I know. But I still don't want to write criticism of a movie through an explicitly political lens, unless it's a very explicitly political movie, like a documentary, something like that. So, Black Widow, my review will be out soon. Comes to Disney Plus and theaters on July 9th. I am very interested to see what will happen on the internet, if this will blow up into a huge, like, Captain Marvel moment. I don't think so, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. Check out my Patreon, I'll link below, and my Substack. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave a comment. Let me know, what you think about all this. Love to hear it. Thanks. Bye.